Hi, everybody. I almost didn't make it because I was on the Eurostar and the fast rail has a train blocked on it, so it took me 2 extra hours, but I'm very glad to be here. And thank you very much to the Mills for extending the invitation, so it's great to see so many familiar and new faces here. So quickly, I think most of you probably know Kering, but we're a global luxury group. Some of our brands include Gucci, Balenciaga, Saint Laurent, Alexander McQueen, Pomellato, Dodo in the jewelry space, Boucheron as well, Ulysse Nardin, so we have watches too, so spanning soft and hard luxury. And we're based in Paris, but also obviously have offices in Milan, where a lot of our supply chain is located, and in New York, in Shanghai, Hong Kong, etc. So we're going to talk about what we're doing in sustainable innovation at Kering. So where are we today? We know this, right? Like, things are bad. We know. We've heard a lot of the statistics in our positions as sustainability professionals and also as consumers. I do think what's changing now, though, is this urgency, this realization in the mainstream that we have 2,000 days left and then it's over. So, you know, when the BBC, for example, starts producing an ethical fashion line with mother of pearl, you've got to say, wow, this is really mainstream. Or when you see on the Paris catwalks during Fashion Week a real discourse about sustainability and plastics in the ocean, which is more than Stella McCartney, but really other brands talking about this now on the catwalk. You really have this feeling that we've reached a tipping point and this is mainstreaming. So that leaves, I don't know about you, but that leaves me feeling pretty schizophrenic. Should I be optimistic? I mean, look at what these manufacturers are doing that just presented. This is great. Look what the Mills does. We're trying so hard. Like, we're going to make it. It's going to be okay. Or should I be pessimistic? You know, should we go colonize Mars and just call it a day? Let's go. You know, I don't know how you guys are feeling, but it changes by the hour sometimes for me whether I feel like we've got this or that it's really tough and we might not make it. But I also think when we're talking about sustainable innovation, that in and of itself is a paradoxical term, or it's a bit of an oxymoron, because sustainability and innovation bring to mind very different things. They have different connotations. So when you think of sustainability, maybe not as professionals, as yourselves in sustainability or working in this space, but what do you think people think of when you say sustainability, or when you come walking down the hall to talk to your operations people about making a change to become more sustainable? What traditionally have people associated sustainability with? Recycled material. Mm-hmm. I thought I heard something over here. Higher cost, thank you. Higher cost. What else traditionally? I'm thinking of some negative things here, like sustainability, oh, that's going to cost more. The quality won't be as good. Less stylish. You know, it's going to be more difficult. You're going to make me change the way I'm doing things, and I don't want to do that. On the other hand, you have innovation. And what do people think of when they think of innovation? It's cool. Yeah, it's definitely trendy. It's cool. Science and technology. Come on, guys. Nothing? Money. Yes, thank you. Revenue opportunities. Oh, we're going to innovate. We're going to make more money. This is going to be really good for our business. So when you're talking about sustainable innovation, you're taking these two very different terms and putting them together. So again, you're getting sort of this perspective. Is it pessimistic or is it optimistic? I'm not quite sure. But I do think that innovation, you know, for years everyone's been saying, how do we make sustainability sexy? And innovation actually does make sustainability sexy because it means high revenue potential. It means we're using science and technology. We're making new things. Opportunity in terms of performance as well. So I think that's really beneficial. It gets a lot of people around the table to talk about sustainability that aren't usually around the table. So you can lead with the innovation conversation. It's like a magnet. And then, as an added bonus on the back end, you say, hey, guess what? This is also more sustainable. So it's going to be better for the environment and hopefully better for the people working in your supply chains. So at Kering, we have a sustainability strategy that's called Crafting Tomorrow's Luxury. And just like we've heard earlier, it's based on different pillars. So there's care related to the environment and the planet, collaborate, all of the social aspects for the people in our company and in our supply chain, and create, which is business model innovation and other types of innovation, materials innovation. So because I'm from a luxury group, I just want to take a minute to talk about materials. Because what separates luxury in many ways is the high quality materials that we're using, and that these materials are the natural fibers. So they're coming from very delicate, fragile ecosystems that we need to take care of if we want to be able to use these materials in the future. So this is cashmere herders in Mongolia. Edwin had mentioned that with the climate change, these are the people who are going to suffer, and that is very true. We actually published a report a few years back on climate change and how it will affect different raw materials like cashmere and cotton and silk, and this was done with BSR. And what it shows is that when it gets hotter, the goats don't produce that undercoat, which is what the nicest cashmere is made from. And when the land is degraded, they're undernourished, which also means that the undercoat is not as present, and so you're getting coarser, lower quality cashmere. So if we want to be able, as a luxury group, to source and have wonderful cashmere, we also have a responsibility to work with these people and to make sure that the way that they're working with their goats does not degrade the land. So we do have a project right now with the Wildlife Conservation Society in Mongolia that helps to try to work on these issues. Because we also want these people to preserve their livelihoods in the long term as well. Silk, another example. So these are some silk cocoons, and silk cocoons are very sensitive to pollution and chemicals. And the biggest, I'm sorry, I'm losing my words here. The country that's providing the most silk is China, and where the pollution is actually getting worse, which is also causing lower quality in the silk. So it's another example of how pollution, climate change is affecting some of these natural fibers that we need for the long term as a luxury company, and why outside of it's the right thing to do reason to do sustainability, it's also for the good of the business that we need to find ways to innovate around these areas. And I would encourage everybody to look at ways to innovate with natural fibers to improve performance as well, because I think, how many of you think you're wearing polyester right now? How many of you don't know? Okay, when you get back tonight, check or whenever, when the thing's done, check your tags, because most of the clothes, over 60% is polyester right now. And of course we can recycle it, but we're losing these fibers. And if we want to have cashmere and wool, we have to also innovate in this space. So in order to tie our activities to our impact, Kering has developed the Environmental Profit and Loss, EP&L. How many of you have heard of the EP&L? Oh, very good. So it's basically saying if we had to write a check to Mother Nature for all of the impacts that our business has on the world, what would the amount of that check be? And what we see with these beautiful, colorful bubbles is that Tier 4 raw material production has the most impact. So over 3/4 of the impact that we're having as a business falls outside of our own supply chains and into the raw material space, which again shows why we really need to work on this area quite a bit. And we have very ambitious targets. So I mentioned these 3 pillars. Innovation is so important because with the EP&L and our strategy, Crafting Tomorrow's Luxury, we have a target to reduce our EP&L by 40%. And we're pretty confident that we can get 20% of the way there with our current programs and projects and with the solutions that exist today. But the other 20%, we're not sure. So we said, we made a bold commitment where we want to achieve it, but we really need to look at innovation to be able to achieve this objective. So we've established a few different flagship programs within Kering. So the first is our Materials Innovation Lab, which you might know as well, which was established in 2014, and which has a library of over 3,000 fabrics, more sustainable fabrics, and which also is really sort of the operational link between brands and suppliers to try to convert some of the products to more sustainable products and to implement and pilot new innovations that we're seeing. So this is now, they were in Novara, which is where one of our production facilities is, and that they're now, now in Milan. We also are partners with Fashion for Good in Amsterdam, had a great week there last week, looking at the graduation of Batch 5 and thinking about Batch 6. So we've had over 75 startups go through the program. It's a 3-month accelerator program, and it's a multi-brand partnership, so with Stella McCartney, with Adidas, with Target, with PVH, with Bestseller. We're all sitting around the table trying to figure out how we can work together on implementing some of these solutions when possible and supporting the different startups in this space. Oh yeah, I think I put in a video. Oh, video.
So today's a big day for us. It's the selection day for the second cohort of startups. The Plug and Play Fashion for Good program is a 12-week program. And what it does is it brings a group of 10 to 15 startups through a very robust training that includes mentorship, includes links to corporate partners, links to markets and investors.
Kering's partnership with the Plug and Play Fashion for Good Accelerator is so important because it helps us identify these promising new startups that are working on alternative raw materials, on improvements in processing, in dyeing, and that's really going to help us improve as a whole industry together to make sure that our apparel sector is as sustainable as possible for the future.
The Fashion for Good program has really allowed us to understand how to work with retailers and think about our impact in sustainability and drive a mission towards that.
As Kering, we can incubate the startups, we can help them have access to our supply chain.
We don't want to build a laboratory monster, we want to make a product that is useful for the industry. So we have to be in contact with the industry from the beginning of the conception and the product development.
The accelerator has on the one side Plug and Play, has the corporate partners, and then Fashion for Good to really also have the impact and sustainability dimension that we add in.
It's really unique and really rare to be able to have so many sort of amazing minds kind of in one place and working on your company and helping you.
You have to start by talking to the industry and to the corporation early on, so you can build the dream together.
We're looking for the next Uber or Dropbox of the sustainable fashion and apparel space, and I think it's out there.
Great. So please look into Fashion for Good if you don't know it already. It's a great organization. Rohir is back there. He can tell you all about it. Some of our startups as well who've been through the program. Another thing that we've done is we've launched an award in December called the K-Generation Award, and this is focused on startups based in the Greater China region who are working on these same issues of alternative raw materials, supply chain, retail and use, and circularity. So really trying to focus on innovations coming out of that region and understanding better the startup and innovation ecosystem there. So please, if you have any friends or if you know people who are working on this space in Greater China, you can send them these links. And the scouting closes on August 31st. We have Plug and Play, who's also the partner in Fashion for Good, helping to scout the startups over there. So quickly, okay, some innovation principles that we found. Who sees the old lady? Nobody sees the old lady? Who sees the young woman? The young lady, okay. A lot of young ladies. The old lady, this is her eye, this is her nose, her mouth, and her chin. You see it? Yes? Okay. So the point of this slide is to really say, when you're doing sustainable innovation, you have to look at all sides of this because there could be some unintended consequences of what you're doing. You think, hey, this is so much better, it's innovative, it's going to be great, the impact will be great, but there's not a lot of data out there right now, and if you think about how some of these are going to go to scale, what kind of consequences could that possibly have? We already mentioned food stock that would compete with food. So you really have to take a 360 look at what this innovation means. It's very complex, so that's one thing that we've learned. We've also learned it's important to have some of these guiding principles in mind. A lot of these solutions aren't plug-and-play solutions. You have to work with your suppliers. You have to work across departments. You have to work with other sectors like the food sector or others. So they're complicated to put into place in most cases. So you really have to keep some of these ideas and principles in mind as you're approaching it. You think it might take 3 months or 6 months, and often it takes a year or 2 years. So there's a long-term vision and a real need to work with others, not only within fashion, but across sectors. Another thing that we've seen is that this is still a very young space, so sustainable innovation within fashion is pretty new. I mean, 5 years ago, there really weren't many startups doing this. And now the whole ecosystem is growing, but there are a lot of hurdles that you have to get through before you can actually get these solutions off the ground. So the market readiness of the startups, the quality, making sure that you're working with startups to help get whatever it is they're dyeing or their raw material or whatever to the quality that you need. So it means pulling your suppliers in and testing and working with them. Again, the impact, trying to get as much data as possible to make sure you're not going to have unintended consequences when you implement. And then the scale up. So a lot of the innovations we see now are also lab stage, maybe they're building a demo plant, but how do you get this to scale? Where are the investors? Working with them, trying to make sure that money is being channeled into this space and we can really grow it all together. So I will leave you with something optimistic. So going back to my first slide, let's be optimistic. So people who wonder whether the glass is half full or half empty are missing the point. The glass is refillable. So let's all go out and keep trying to refill that glass and make sure that we're getting where we need to before our 2,000 days run out. Thank you.